Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now, joining us is Emmanuel Jime, Benue State APC governorship candidate. He's also the managing director of the Nigeria Export Processing Zones Authority. And as a member of the House of Representatives representing Makurdi Guma Federal Constituency, he was the first to move a motion on the need to establish ranches as a panacea for the farmer-herder crisis in 2011. Today, he will be telling us why he is the man for the job of Benue State. Welcome to the morning show. Now, tell us what compelled you to vie for the governorship race and what you will do differently if elected.
Once again, thank you. Thank you for having me. First and foremost, let me express profound gratitude to the good people of Benue State for the opportunity they've given me in all of my life, starting from when I was first elected to the House of Assembly and rose to become the Speaker of that Assembly. And I also had the privilege of being elected twice to the House of Representatives, as you said, to represent the good people of Makurdi and Guma Federal Constituency. I run for governor of Benue State at this time, precisely so that I can move our state in a different direction, to move it away from the current state of inertia, the ineptitude that has become the lot of our state, the crass incompetence and the incapacity that has been demonstrated by the current leadership in our state. I run for governor precisely so that I can move our state on the path of peace, progress, and prosperity. At the moment, it is fair to say that the current administration lacks direction. It has led our state in a way that today government can be said to be completely in abeyance. We don't have anything that one can point to in all the boxes that you can tick as good governance in our state, whether it is in the area of infrastructure, whether it is security, the economy and social well-being of our state has been greatly compromised because of the lack of clear-headed leadership that Benue State deserves to have. So the reason I run for governor at this point is because I believe I've gotten the preparation for this particular office. As I have said in my opening statements, I've served our state in various capacities. I know exactly what the problems of our state are, and I'm mentally very well prepared for the responsibility of the office of governor. My understanding is that the responsibility of the governor of a state is precisely to provide for the security and the welfare of our people. In the area of security, as I've said, this government has totally failed to deliver on security, and this with the explanation that over 22 billion has been spent by this current administration to provide security. Of course, I recognize that the greatest challenge that we have in our state at the moment for the delivery of security has to do principally with the crisis that we've had in respect to the herdsmen and farmers crisis that has been on in our state for a very, very long time, but one crisis that has attained an ascendancy that today requires clear-headed leadership, for us to be able to solve. You also have to keep in mind that apart from the herdsmen crisis, we also have internal security breaches. At the moment, there is a particular part of Benue State, the Ukum-Shitile axis of Sankara in Zone A of our state, that is undergoing internecine crisis in such a way that, again, attention needs to be paid so that we can actually guarantee security for our people. I understand unless and until we can guarantee security, there is simply no way that we are able to make the kinds of progress that our state was actually created way back in 1976 to be able to bring.
Mr. Jime,
So
you've talked
my
about...
prognosis.
You've talked in quite alliterative terms of the inertia, ineptitude, incompetence, and incapacity of the current administration leading Benue. So I take it that you are dissatisfied with the measures taken by Governor Autumn to stem the herdsman-farmers crisis, specifically his anti-open grazing law. Is this something that you would like to address? Is this a law that you would want to repeal or amend if at all you are elected?
Let me make the point quickly that, in my opinion, there is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with the anti-open grazing law of the state. I believe that that law, when properly implemented, is actually meant to secure, to guarantee security. But at the same time, if you look at the law properly, you'll see implicit in that law is a platform that's been provided for the economic progress of our state. So my position is that the governor of our state at the moment has decided to use this law for politics, and I disagree. We ought not to politicize a law that really has to do with the security and welfare of our people. I believe the best way is to implement that law, and I'm better able actually to implement that law, is to argue the economic imperative that is embedded within the law itself. People may need to understand that the essence of that law was actually to provide for a ranching system. It wasn't actually a law that was targeted at any group of persons. The law was conceived so that we can ranch cattle. And animal ranching, as far as I'm concerned, in the 21st century, is a new form of husbandry for animals. It is livestock economy, and nobody really should be precluded or excluded from participating in the economy of ranching. So I believe that when we put forward the argument of the economic imperative of that law, we will get everyone to buy into it. You see, the experience I've had of not only being a lawyer, but a lawmaker, is that it prepares me to understand you can only implement a law successfully when the people for whom the law is made buy into it. Now, the challenge that I think we've had with the implementation of that law, and by the way, the law has not actually guaranteed or provided the security it was meant to achieve. If anything, it has actually been counterproductive. So my position and my take is that we'll have to move the implementation of that law in a clear-headed direction that says to our people, the economy of ranching is one that everybody should take advantage of, and we all should participate in it. And let me remind us, especially those of us who grew up in the time of Governor Apereku, the first civilian governor of Benue State, God bless his soul. This is the man who saw this particular problem 40 years ago and decided to do something about it. And that is the reason why he created the Ikogen Cattle Ranch. The Ikogen Cattle Ranch was reputed at the time of its creation, almost 40 years ago, to be the biggest cattle ranch in the whole of Nigeria.
Indeed.
Now,
Mr.
he understood
Jime,
that you can...
You have rightly put it that Benue State is the ground zero for the farmer-herders clashes. But you have also said that the Governor Autumn, spent about 20 billion naira on security, but you also sound dissatisfied with the outcomes. In a recent interview, you said you would not be probing the past administration. Why so?
The responsibility that will fall on the shoulder of whoever succeeds Governor Autumn is such a huge, huge responsibility. I have a 4-year term that I'm looking at. And in those 4 years, I intend to impact on the development of my state in ways that has never been done before. What that means is that I've got to have my focus. I've got to have my thinking cap on my head. The future is what I'm concerned with. The moment you begin to look backwards, I think that you're going to be distracted. I cannot afford any distraction in the next 4 years. So for me, probing the past, is not necessarily, the ways to go if your intention is to actually bring about prosperity and development, which is what I think my state is in their need of at the moment. So going backwards is not what I would do. And like I said in an interview, it is not in my DNA.
But
let me enter a caveat so we understand.
Isn't that contradicting your party's position on a national level? The APC has been probing past administration, the PDP's past, and it's become sort of a sing-song to say, we did not save for a rainy day, and that's where we are today. But hearing you say that you would not do that in Benue State kind of contradicts what your party stands for in the anti-corruption drive it is known for.
I do not think that it is actually a policy position of the APC that we should probe past administrations. But you have to keep in mind that every individual has a style and may decide on what their priorities are. My priority in Benue State, I repeat, is to develop my state and to move it in a direction where in 4 years' time, the evidence of development will be clear for everyone to see. So I disagree that it is a policy position of the APC to probe. That being said, I also would like to enter a caveat, and that caveat simply is that we run a presidential-type democracy. We have 3 arms of government, and that's the judiciary, the legislature, and of course, the executive arm of government. I have been privileged to have served in the legislative arm of government for close to 10 years. That gives me a reason to promote the idea of independence of each arm of government, so that way we can have the sort of synergy that is required for progress to be made. So if the legislative arm of government, for example, may decide in the course of their oversight that there is something in the past that needs to have some searchlight on it, that will be the responsibility of that arm of government. And because I maintain we're going to have independence of each arm of government, I would not be interfering in that exercise. But as a person and my style, and because of the enormity of the work in front of us, I have made it an article of faith. We will move ahead. We will look beyond the past and emphasize the future and make sure that we put our state on the path of progress, which I think Benue citizens are yearning for. The change Benue is looking for is for an individual who is well-grounded, who understands what the issues are, and who has made the decision that once we get into government, we'll hit the ground running. Let me take a few moments of your time, if you permit, to tell you the areas that I believe are key and we are going to be focusing on. So security is one area. We've already started discussing it. As I said, I'm not satisfied with the way that security has been handled.
Indeed.
I think that if we recognize, for instance,
Indeed, we will talk about security because it's what I'm going to ask you. It seems to be the biggest and greatest challenge for your state. And you mentioned that Governor Tom has spent about 22 billion to provide security in your state. Are you critical of that? And would you spend less or more of that in providing adequate security in Benue State?
Okay, so my criticism of the amount of money allegedly spent on security is precisely the fact that 22 billion is said to have been spent, yet no security has been delivered. So obviously, in my judgment, there is something fundamentally wrong with this claim. And I would like us to appreciate the point. I would think that if you spent 22 billion, and I have no quarrels with spending that much amount of money if you actually deliver on security. So the point being made, quite frankly, is that I do not think that 22 billion was actually spent on the delivery of security. But let me go further to say that my identification of the herdsmen and farmers crisis is only one component to the security challenges that we have in our state. I've also spoken about the internal security breaches that we're having. I identify as part of the problem is the fact that there is today youth restiveness in our state. There's so much joblessness. We've got 3 tertiary institutions, 3 universities in Benue, in addition to all the other tertiary institutions that are there in our state. These institutions are producing graduates in their thousands. There are simply no jobs for our youth. That is a recipe for disaster anywhere. My prognosis, therefore, is that we have to find a way to take our youths off the streets, make them useful not only to themselves, but to our society. And one way we can do this is to promote our agriculture, because that is the one area that Benue State has the comparative advantage in Nigeria. We're given the slogan, the food basket of the nation, and it's not for the fun of being given a slogan. It's precisely because the nation recognizes that if we do proper agriculture in our state, that state can feed Nigeria. We can even go beyond this country. At the moment, I think that we are paying lip service to agriculture. One of the first things I intend to do is to institute legal reform that will enable all the agencies of government that have responsibility for delivery on agriculture, whether it is the Benue Tractor Hiring Agency or all the other agencies that are responsible for delivery of agriculture, will have to reform legally and indeed in the structures of those institutions in order for these institutions to deliver on our agriculture.
Mr. Jime,
excuse me, let's understand one. Just a moment, please. I want to make this point quickly. In Benue State today, there is only one person that is doing commercial agriculture. He only has tractors on his farm. He only has all the machinery that can deliver agriculture at a commercial level in our state. The governor of Benue State is the biggest farmer. And we did not elect Governor Tom to be the biggest farmer in Benue. He was elected precisely so he can enable all of the farmers of Benue State to be able to attain their great potentials in agriculture. That's not happening. And I think we have to move our state in a different direction. Fortunately, I'm not a farmer. I'm not a businessman. I run for office so that I can ensure that business people have the enabling environment for them to do business. I run for governor so I can ensure that the environment is created for the agricultural sector of Benue to take its pride of place. And we're going to be very creative about the ideas that we bring. Is it not embarrassing that a state like Kebbi, located in desert Nigeria, is producing rice far in excess of what the whole of northern Nigeria can consume, when one local government area in Benue State has the capacity to be able to produce enough rice to feed this nation?
Mr. Jime,
so there is something lacking, and I repeat.
You made an allegation now that the largest farmer in Benue is Governor Ortom. Was he a farmer before he became governor, or did this start after he became governor?
Well, I know that before Governor Ortom became governor, he had a small farm, where you could go and eat a few chicken here and there, a few goats all over the place. It is when Governor Tom rose and became governor of the state that his farm took the kinds of magnitude that you can actually speak to commercialization of agriculture in the terms that I speak. My point is nothing wrong about being a farmer.
I actually wanted to take you to a topical issue of the day, the minimum wage. Now, Benue State government is notorious for paying salaries in arrears and not on time. This has obtained with Governor Ortom and previously with Governor Akume. How do you plan to tackle this and reverse this trend? And will you be paying the 30,000 naira minimum wage?
There's no question about that in my mind. Once it is decided, don't forget that process is ongoing. I don't think it is concluded yet, but any time there is a decision of what the minimum wage is, Benue State will be ready under my watch. But let me just mention a few things about salaries and the wage bill situation in Benue, which I believe is in also need for further review and interrogation. Now, at the inception of Governor Otom's administration in 2015, he and his spokespeople told Benue State that the salary wage bill of Benue was under 3 billion. That was in 2015. Now, fast forward to 2018, the wage bill is now reported to be over 7 billion. The question I'm asking is, what is the reason for this blowing up of the wage bill? We are not employing new people. People are dying. Others are leaving the service. So what actually is responsible, for this catapulted increment from under 3 billion to over 7 billion? I will be charitable in describing this situation as fraudulent. But the fact of the matter is that there is something fundamentally wrong in there. We intend to put our searchlight on. But I have also offered a way forward. One of the things I believe we should do, and we will do that as soon as we get into office, is to introduce the TSA that the federal government has already introduced at the federal level. As you all know, that particular platform, the technology that drives it, has already helped the federal government not only to sanitize the civil service structure at the federal level, but we can certainly say with some amount of absoluteness, the government is now able to say who is a real civil servant at the federal level. In Benue State, that's not the case. At the moment, we're still dealing with the situation where there is a so-called group of people called ghost workers. I think that if we put this technology in place, in addition to also the IPPIS that the federal government has also instituted, I've had the privilege of working for a federal government agency, so that prepares me to understand that there are technology available for us to be able to determine with certainty who are actually the civil servants in our state. When you do that, you're going to free at least over 3 billion of resources that at the moment I truly believe are going into private pockets. So that's one area that we're going to find resources to be able to fund some of the very ambitious projects that we have. Second, we also have put in place a platform to ensure that the private sector drives our economy. You see, I'm one of those who believe that the private sector really must be the driver of any economy. And unless and until we create the environment for the private sector to be attracted to do business in Benue State, we won't have achieved even half of what we intend to do. So almost every program of ours has a time frame, has a timeline, has a funding source, and we are primed to deliver on everything that we're putting across on the table. So to answer your question, I believe that the wage bill in Benue State is over-bloated, and I think that we can deal with that situation. And also we will be able to pay whatever is said that the minimum wage bill will be, and we'll go further. There are pensions and pensioners that at the moment have not been paid their pension allowances for close to 2 years in some cases, and in some cases even more. People are dying by the thousands. We don't talk about those things, but in Benue today, when we talk about the herdsmen crisis, we're also connecting it also to the salary herdsmen situation. People try to make fun of it sometimes, but at the same time, these are critical issues that I think, in my opinion, will require that we put all our hands on deck and to work in a way that can deliver our state so that we can make the progress that is required of it.
Well, you've spoken extensively about security. What else would you be offering the Benue people should they give you their mandate?
Well, I've already touched on agriculture, and I dare say that for me, that is the key plank of our economic development. Agriculture is the one area we have comparative advantage. There's nothing that doesn't grow in our state. At the moment, unfortunately, as I said, one person is doing commercial agriculture. We intend to enable the environment so that as many people as want to do agriculture find it attractive. Particularly our younger ones, the youths who are graduating from the universities with beautiful ideas as to how they can promote agriculture. They now have a partner. They now have someone who will be looking after their needs. Because my desire is to make sure that we use our agricultural potentials in order to grow our economy. That is the only way that we can bring our state out of the current state of indebtedness that this current administration has put us. Over 200 billion has been accrued to this state through loans and other facilities. By the way, let me just digress a bit to say that at the inception of this government, Governor Tom told us again that the previous administration of Governor Suswam, who is now his partner in PDP, had stolen 107 billion, his words. He set up a committee, and that committee actually made the determination, a judicial commission, made a determination that the previous administration headed by Governor Suswam has stolen 107 billion. He said also that if he had gotten that 107 billion, he would be able to turn our state into the United Kingdom. Well, here is the jury. Over 402 billion has been accrued and assessed by the Benue State government from 2015 until now. We don't see any United Kingdom. We don't even see Lafia. That is very, very close as our neighbor. The point also being made is that you cannot really give what you do not have. This blame game that has been shared around by our current administration, by the governor, I think that's not the way to govern a state. When he came into office in 2015, he said Governor Suswam was responsible for why he was not able to deliver in the first 2 years. Once he moved away from APC and went to the PDP, he's now decided that our leader, distinguished Senator George Akume, is responsible for his inability to perform. At what point is Governor Otom going to take responsibility for the lack of performance of his administration?
Mr.
We can't
Jime,
keep sharing blame.
Mr. Jime, I'd like to take you back to your point about the TSA. When I asked you whether salaries will be paid as due or in arrears has been the custom in Benue State, and you mentioned the TSA. But I'd like you to specifically commit, if you can, that salaries will be paid. Because we all know, yes, TSA does eliminate issues like ghost workers and what have you, but that's different from a commitment and undertaking to pay the staff as and when due.
I believe that I've made the commitment, and I think it's absolute. If we're actually looking and listening to ourselves in this survey, and I say this with all due sense of humility and respect, I've outlined where we're going to raise our resources. And I've made the point that if we grow our economy, then obviously every other thing is on the table. Ask first for the growth of the Benue economy, and the rest that you want will follow. That is my philosophy. So the commitment I make to the Benue populace, especially our civil servants, is that once we kick in with all of the policies that we have, I mentioned the TSA because what that does is to enable us to ascertain with some absoluteness who are the Benue civil servants in order for us to actually determine what the wage bill actually is. At the moment, I think it is up in the air what really is the Benue wage bill. And I've also laid out other platforms where we're going to raise our resources. That's why I went into agriculture and we're discussing the Benue economy. For me, there is a connection. I mean, you've got to have to grow the economy for you to be able to deliver on social welfare and some of the other issues of governance that I think are also critical to the delivery of quality services. So my answer again to you on that point is that we are better able, because of the policy framework, because of the tools that are available to us, with a clear head, we will be able to do equity, do justice, and ensure that our civil servants and our pensioners are able to retire, go back to their homes, and live the good life. That, for me, will be my responsibility in the next 4 years. And I have no
Mr.
question
Jime,
in my mind about our capacity to be able to do that. Yes.
let's talk some politics now. Up until 2018, Governor Ocham was a member of the ruling APC. Now, his defection to the PDP was widely celebrated because of the perception of abandonment from the ruling party, APC, at the federal level, to the killings unabated killings in Benue State. How does your party think that it will assume power in such a state, at the state level, which you're vying for as the governor? And how do you think that the people of Benue State would want to endorse President Muhammadu Buhari at the polls to give him a second term to run?
Okay, this is a very loaded question. I think there are a couple of connecting things that are going on at the same time in that question. But let me address it the much I can. First, to say that people in Benue State remember that as of 2014, during the course of the APC primaries to nominate the flag bearer of the APC, I was the leading candidate in that process. I was actually very close to victory before that process was stagnated. Governor Otom was actually a member of the PDP. Let's keep that in mind. Until he lost the PDP primaries and then overnight became the candidate of the APC, and we went into that election and won. So you've got to understand this is the background of his emergence as governor in the first place. He was never actually a member of the APC, never believed in the APC ideology, and never actually put that ideology in place. And I think the people understand that the change they yearned for was aborted, because this is not the end product of the APC process in 2014 was not what the people desired. So we now are on that platform of moving into the arena where the real desires of the Benue people will best be established. And that's what gives me a very good standing as far as the Benue population is concerned. They also have to remember the fact that as a member of the House of Representatives for 8 years, I put forward, I think in the opinion of my constituents, a stellar performance as a member of the House of Representatives. I have very good records on which I'm running. And by the way, I think anybody who is seeking re-election really ought to be running on his scorecard. That's not the case in Benue. I'm running as somebody who is coming from outside, but I'm running on the record of my performances in all of the public offices I've been holding. And I've, with all due humility, acquitted myself very well, would discharge myself with merit anytime I've had the opportunity of public office. So that's one reason. I believe that the environment in Benue State today, especially because of the gross incompetence and lack of capacity, the lack of delivery of good governance by Governor Otom, is the greatest foundation on which my candidacy is running. So this is the situation.
So
we are presenting
the other part of my
Benue,
question, I mean, there's the presidential elections first.
Yeah.
What are the chances
there,
of President Muhammadu Buhari in Benue State, which we are even yet to see the campaign trail visit?
You see, there is only one thing in Benue at the moment that gives Governor Otom oxygen. That is to run on this propaganda of being the defender of the people. At the moment, people give him funny slogans, such as the defender of the Benue Valley. I mean, the Benue Valley starts from all the way in Kogi State and ends up as far as Cameroon Republic. I don't understand how one person can become the defender of that valley. So you see, this is a very disingenuous way of trying to campaign. But to answer your question directly, let me make this point. Until the President of the Federal Republic, who is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, decided to order the army to move into Benue and to occupy the border areas where this crisis had become very serious. presently Benue State would have been totally overrun. I mean, that to me is something that any decent, discerning, responsible Benue citizen can identify. Until the army moved into the areas where they are presently. And I would like to give commendation to Mr. President for the foresight in putting the armed forces where they are at the moment. Of course, let's understand it is part of the president's responsibility to deliver on security. He's the chief security officer of the nation after all. But the truth of the matter is that if the president had not moved in, Benue would be overrun as at the moment. So I would like to believe that our state and our people recognize that Mr. President's intervention in some ways has also guaranteed the security of the people way beyond the slogans that Governor Otom is putting forward. I hear he's moving into the villages and talking to gullible, and I say that with all due sense of respect to our voters. I don't intend to insult our voters. But the gullibility I refer to is that there are a number of people who truly believe that Otom is responsible for the military manning the security post in our state at the moment. How much untrue can that be? You are not the chief security officer of the state. You do not control any police force. You do not control anybody that holds arms. So are you delivering security with your bare hands? I mean, this for me are issues that people are beginning to realize every day. And as we proceed in our campaigns, we're letting people to understand that the president actually means well for the state. As far as delivery on our security is concerned, look, are we there where we should be as far as our security requirements? No.
For Benue State, we have talked about security for it. We have talked about the funding for it. Now let's look at the background to what actually caused this state of insecurity in that state. There's a Herculean task ahead of you in terms of this farmer-herder clash. How do you intend to resolve this and put a stop to it?
Well, as I said earlier, I am a strong advocate of the ranching law. And I say this not because I want to play politics with it. Let's look at the records. When I was in the House of Representatives in 2011, as far back, almost 8 years ago, I stood up on the floor of the House of Representatives as the only Benue representative to raise a motion to provide a solution to this particular issue of the herdsmen and our farmers and the crisis that had been there. Keep in mind, I come from a border local government area with Nasarawa State, where most of these herdsmen normally cross into our state. My own family compound in our village was actually burnt. So I'm a direct victim of this particular crisis. I do not speak about this as someone who is looking from outside on the inside. I was directly affected by it. And that was the reason that motivated by moving a motion in 2011. The records are there to be verified. And in that motion, we provided a number of solutions, one of which was ranching. So this idea of ranching is not actually any exclusive preserve of the present governor. It is not even his idea in the first place. As a matter of fact, when the civil society organizations were pushing for that law, Governor Otom was actually in antagonism to them. Those who pushed the law at that time will actually acknowledge the point that I'm making here. When he finally ceded to the pressure of the Benue civil, let me just land. When he finally, ceded to the Benue pressure and sent.
That's where we're going to have to leave it now. Emmanuel Jime, the All Progressives candidate, gubernatorial candidate, Benue State, would like to thank you for joining us on the morning show. We have run out of time. Apologies there. Well, this brings us to the end of the morning show this Friday. Thank you for watching and being a part of it. Do stay tuned for the rest of our programming. And from all of us, it's goodbye.